New videos every day.
Hi, I'm Radhia Gleis. I'm a certified clinical nutritionist.
And I'm Peter McCarthy. I'm a certified traditional naturopath.
And this is Wake Up America. Peter, swine flu.
Swine flu.
Or piglet flu, as one of our friends said today.
There you go. Yep. It's been in all the headlines, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. So what do you make of that?
Well, you know, it's really important, I think, when you look at something like swine flu, especially when the information about it has become so widespread, to be able to separate fact from fiction. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the facts?
Well, you know, that's been very difficult for most people to really determine because there's been so much information that has been offered to the public so fast that you really can't differentiate. But here's the thing that I think you really need to know about swine flu. First of all, despite what you may see in some of the media organs, we really don't know where it came from yet. Some of the health ministers from nations around the globe have a suspicion that it may have been artificially produced, but there's really no evidence out there that that's the truth. What there is evidence of is that you're looking at a strain of flu that has elements of avian, swine, and human flu viruses that have somehow become mixed together. Now, why is that important? Well, that means that it can be transmitted from, to use health terminology, a number of different vectors, a number of different directions or sources. What most people believe is the most probable direction that you're going to pick it up from is either if you're exposed to pigs, swine flu, that where you come in direct contact with an infected animal, that can certainly be a possibility. But it's also been very clearly determined that it can be transmitted human to human. Now, it's important, too, to understand that simply because someone is infected with swine flu and you're exposed to it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to actually contract the disease. A number of things have to happen, don't they?
Well, yeah. First of all, viruses basically, we're actually exposed to viruses and bacteria and everything all day long, every day. Generally, those kind of rhinoviruses and upper respiratory viruses come in through the nose. That virus is generally encapsulated in a protein capsule, and unless that protein capsule is broken, it can go actually right through the body and you will not be infected by it.
That's right.
So there are certain factors about the human body. Our immune system is really designed, basically, rather miraculously, to protect us from that. But there are certain factors that the general public needs to be aware of. And it's really not vaccination deficiency.
That's right. That's a good way of putting it, isn't it?
So a couple of the things that is important to realize is, first of all, your pH, right? The pH of the body, we want to be more alkaline pH. Basically, the key is that we really don't want that virus to break that encapsulation. There are other things, such as bacterias, that create a sort of secondary immune response, which lowers our immune's ability. This is why in some of those viral-related pneumonias, the doctor will give you an antibiotic. An antibiotic will do nothing for a virus, but it's the secondary bacterial infections. And generally, it works like this. When we get symptoms of any of that, we create mucus. Basically, this is one of the forms of the body getting rid of it. It carries mucus up through the nasal passages, etc., and delivers it out of the body. But the problem is that mucus is a nice little petri dish for bacterial overgrowth. So, that's an important factor. You want to be very, very careful of not reducing your immune by the stress master here, who's written the book. Tell us a little bit about what stress does to the immune system.
Oh, sure. Well, stress has a very detrimental impact on the immune system. When you introduce a substance or a virus causing an immune reaction, it immediately starts to mobilize all of the resources of the body, including the stress response, and all of the hormones and physiological changes that are associated with the stress response to be able to defeat that virus. Well, if you're under a high level of chronic stress, and what people in this society aren't, when you now have that same virus introduced into your body's already occupied with dealing with stress. So it's going to have that fewer number of resources available to be able to counteract the virus. And so you become more susceptible to that virus and more easily ill.
Right. So you want to definitely don't push the envelope when it comes to stress. Do whatever you can, and whatever that is, chill out. And first of all, and this is interesting, which we're going to bring up, and we're going to get back to some of the things that we can do, supplementally wise and diet wise. But one of the important things that we have to realize is that the media gives us a lot of stress.
Oh,
right?
You think?
Yeah. So much of it, unfortunately, much of this whole epidemic concept is incited by the media,
yes,
which makes everybody nervous and everybody afraid, and the next person who sneezes in the room, you go running for the doors. And one of the things that there's been a lot of publicity about is these vaccinations. And so we're starting to smell a little something rotten in Denmark here.
Oh, aren't we though? It's really interesting that when you look at who would benefit by the declaration of either a nationwide or a worldwide pandemic. Well, there's only one industry that's going to benefit from that, and that's the pharmaceutical companies who manufacture the vaccines and the medications that supposedly will help to counteract an outbreak of, for example, swine flu.
So, some of the things that we're seeing in the media are just so blown out of proportion. So tell us what the World Health Organization has really stated about this particular flu.
Well, on the one hand, they have declared a phase 5 pandemic alert. That doesn't mean that there is a pandemic, but they, based on the initial reports of outbreaks of swine flu around the globe, they believed that declaring a phase 5 alert was a prudent precautionary measure. Well, what they've now done is they've gone back into the original data and looked to see who actually died of the flu. And of the hundreds of people that were initially reported by the media around the globe, they only found 7 in Mexico that they could definitely say had passed away because of contracting the swine flu virus. 7 people. Nobody in the United States, nobody anywhere else around the globe, 7 people. And as Radhia indicated, this is World Health Organization that is reporting this. And the CDC is also starting to verify these same figures, that the initial number that was reported is actually much lower.
So this is an article that I really wanted to talk about. As far as who is benefiting, we've already discussed that. Let me just read you a couple of excerpts here. Wall Street revealed that the pandemic scare sent stock prices soaring for drug companies making antiviral drugs, rabid flu diagnosed tests, and influenza vaccines. And they give the list, and you know them all: GlaxoSmithKline, Baxter, Johnson & Johnson, Roche, all of those guys.
All the usual suspects.
Yes, and it says here, there is action being taken behind the scenes by politicians and government health officials to prepare the way for implementation of future quarantines and mass vaccinations of citizens with experimental vaccines and drugs that have bypassed normal FDA regulations for demonstrating purity and potency of pharmaceutical products.
Whoa. So basically what that's saying, folks, is they remove all the safety protocols, say, this is a real emergency, we have to take drastic action. And you could, in this scenario, wind up actually being vaccinated with something that's not been tested. There's no data on what kind of fatality rate you're going to have. Ask yourself, is that the kind of stuff you want put in your body? And what's worse is you've got politicians who are literally being led around by the nose by these drug companies saying, oh yeah, this is the right thing to do.
Well, you and I were in a hearing. We were in the hearing in the Texas legislature last week, actually. It was the dietitians, HB 3528. Mm-hmm. And remember, in the morning, when you go into these hearings, you're there all day and whatever. And before the hearing started, we had the health department coming and giving the pandemic report to the health committee. And they were talking about vaccinations and talking about what the state of Texas had and how many they perceived they're going to need, etc. This is another quote here. A public health emergency has become an excuse to grease the skids and rush to market experimental drugs and vaccines that are not subject to product liability in the civil courts. The mandate, mass use of multiple vaccines, has been big business in the last quarter century since the U.S. Congress passed a law in 1986 shielding vaccine makers and doctors from liability for vaccine injuries and deaths, and the number of vaccines recommended by the federal health officials for American children multiplied from 23 doses of 7 vaccines to 48 doses of 14 vaccines from birth to age 6. So, because they're taking all the liability out of it, basically they're experimenting on your children, for one, and on us.
That's
and
it.
And this article goes on. It's very interesting because it talks about, big governments. They get scares from certain organizations that basically say, oh, look out, there's going to be a big pandemic coming down the road. And we heard the report to the health committee last week in Texas. Well, the health committee is generally, they're citizens like you and I for the most part, and they are listening to the reports that are coming from the authorities. So basically what they're doing, or what they were doing in this, is saying, State of Texas, we need to order more vaccines. We need to really stock up on this because they were worried about the population. Now, interestingly enough, what they said is that these vaccines have a shelf life of only 3 years. So imagine if you're a government and you order a massive amount of vaccinations and they're sitting on the shelf and they're coming close to their shelf life expiration. Well, isn't it interesting how a pandemic all of a sudden emerges and everyone panics and runs out and gets their flu shots? I don't know. You see anything tricky about that?
Well, see, and that's the thing that to us is so objectionable to the way our healthcare system is being run today, and it's really a primary reason why we've been offering this information to you and a lot more like it on Wake Up America. It's really to sensitize and energize the public that there are some things that need to change. And this is a classic example of one of those things that needs to change. You have a system where basically the inmates are running the insane asylum, and they have no safety protocols. There's no manacles, no chains. There's nothing out there to restrict these people from being able to impose their will on the American people. And so that's what's got to change.
So one of the things that we started this with is, what can you do? It's really, again, we go into this this medical model, and everything is all about fixing the immediate disease instead of prevention.
Right.
And we have talked a little bit about how a virus works. Basically, a virus cannot be activated unless it can get into your cell. Once it gets into your cell, once that protein capsule is broken and it can get into the cell, then it literally rearranges your DNA. It uses you as a vehicle. So what are some of the things that we can do to protect ourselves from a preventative measure instead of running out and getting these flu vaccinations? The flu vaccinations lower your immune system in the first place. They do not last a lifetime. Do not kid yourself. A flu virus vaccination does not last a lifetime. So it lasts a short period of time, and it reduces your immune. So a couple of things that you want to do. You really want to, as we said, reduce your stress. Stop looking at the news. Stop looking at the news, because it's very, very stressful with what's going on in this world. Whatever relaxation techniques that you can do, do them. Plenty of alkalinizing foods. This means your alkalinizing minerals, calcium, magnesium, potassium. This means green leafy vegetables, especially fruits and vegetables, are alkalinizing. Stay away from refined sugar, you know the drill. Stay away from the junk foods. These are acid-forming foods. These are the things that can assist in breaking that capsule and releasing that virus. Okay, so we want citrus, lemon, and lime is alkalinizing. Apple cider vinegar is alkalinizing. Basically, greens such as blue-green algae and spirulinas are highly alkalinizing. You really want to stay sort of low end of the meats. Watch the red meats, no fried foods, things like that. Let's see, what else?
Well, you want to stay away from the high glycemic index fruits. Something like bananas that's got a lot of sugar in it. That's going to be something that will actually help to promote an acid pH. You go to some of the low glycemic fruits like apples, pears, anything
berries.
Berries. And that brings up a good point, because the other part of this, remember that any disease process in the body is going to produce free radicals. So you want to be able to use a good suit of antioxidants, good vitamin C, vitamin E, beta carotene, the precursor natural form, water soluble form of vitamin A. I call those the big three. And some of the other specific antioxidants that are going to help to counteract whatever action that a flu virus will take in your body. And those are glutathione, the mineral selenium, and the amino acid lysine. And those taken either separately or in combination, along with some of the other guidelines that we've given you, are really going to go a long way towards being able to keep your body alkaline, keep the free radical count low, and to give your body the nutrients that it needs to really be able to counteract that viral infestation.
And one of the things that has been recommended is to do a glutathione, this is reduced glutathione, nasal spray. Especially
Definitely.
for this particular kind of virus. And also another very important element this is an upper respiratory virus, a lung virus. So NAC, that is N-acetyl choline, and basically what you want is 1,200 milligram 2 times a day. This will reduce the symptoms of this kind of respiratory virus. So, yeah, we really, really want to encourage you to prevent, to keep yourself healthy, plenty of water, clean water, stay away from caffeine, stay away from alcohol, stay away from processed, refined foods, really bone up on alkalinizing your system and reducing your stress. And I think you're going to be a lot better off. And if you do get the flu, then again, the NAC, the glutathione, the antioxidants and all of that one of the things that has been said is that the particular vaccine that they're giving out actually only takes the symptoms by about a day and a half less than actually getting the virus and going all the way through it.
Yeah, you're talking about Tamiflu.
Yeah, the Tamiflu.
It only reduces the actual symptomology that you'll experience by about a day and a half. You're still going to get the flu. You're still going to get sick. So, you've got to balance that off of, okay, am I really going to gain anything other than that day and a half? And what am I going to lose in terms of the side effects that Tamiflu has, which can be considerable depending upon your particular physiology.
The oxysilicum, the flu homeopathic,
yes,
actually works very well for this particular type of flu, as well as that NAC, 1,200 milligram twice a day. So this is what we're encouraging you to do, is to basically build a strong immune system and not lower your immune system by some of those agents and especially those vaccinations. Build a strong immune system and, weather it. But I really don't think that it is as big a problem as the pharmaceutical companies would like you to believe it is. But stay healthy, okay?
All right, and we'll see you next time, folks. Thanks for tuning in.
All right.
If you liked this video, we have hundreds of more alternative videos ranging from sexual health to psychology to mind control. So if you liked it, go ahead and click on me to enter the Psychetruth channel.